start then. Hi, this is Kendra.
This is Olivia.
And Josh.
And you're listening to Our Music Oddcast. I am recording from a phone call, so hopefully this doesn't sound like crap.
Yeah.
You'll notice, your voice is quite a bit nasalier, but it's through the phone.
Is it different?
It's the same.
A little bit.
No, it's just from the phone, yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I'm definitely pouring myself a drink right now, so you might hear a lot more background noise because I am prone to wandering around and pacing while I'm on the phone.
That's fine.
So, sorry in advance.
Yeah. So what are you drinking?
I'm drinking wild cherry Pepsi.
Oh.
Wild.
I know. Big adventurer here.
Yeah.
Is there anything in the Pepsi?
Not even ice cubes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm drinking a magnesium supplement that it doesn't taste that bad, but it has like the consistency of sand. So that's not very, it's not very pleasant, especially at the bottom. But
is it like one of those like thick ass drinks that like you get from the store?
It comes in like these little.
Or did you like make it yourself?
It comes in like these little powdered pouches, and you just mix it with water. Because I hate swallowing pills, so I try to like get supplements that are either like the liquid or sometimes powder.
Nobody asked me what I was drinking.
I know, Josh, what are you drinking?
Well, I was just waiting for you to interject, Josh.
I know.
I'm drinking filtered water with lime.
Sorry, go ahead.
Filtered water with lime, organic lime.
Ooh, that sounds nice.
I know.
Sounds refreshing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you ever like put aloe in that stuff?
Nope.
Like just like a tiny bit of aloe from a plant?
Never tried that.
I've heard of it. I've never tried it.
I do that when I want to feel fancy, but I don't know if it does anything. I don't really care.
Yeah.
It's supposed to be good for your digestion,
when I do it.
I don't know.
Sorry, I keep on interrupting you.
Okay.
Yeah, I have heard that too, that it's good. You know, it does have health benefits. I've just never tried it. It kind of has like the snotty consistency and made me not want to try to drink it. But maybe it's different when you mix it with water.
Fair.
Yeah.
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 I could see it being snotty though, for sure.
Yeah. I just worried that I'd get like a glob like sliding down my throat and it'd feel like a booger or something.
Oh my God, I had that happen the other day.
It's the worst.
I had this apple cider that I got like probably too long ago. And it hadn't hit the expiration date yet, but it's like literally like was a day or two off. So I was like, oh, I better drink all this right now. And I had shaked it and stuff like that. And there was like this gelatinous, like booger-esque. It was like the world's biggest loogie. But I didn't freaking notice it until like I had made myself like an apple cider and rum drink.
Yeah.
And I like took one sip and it like just went into my mouth and it was the most disgusting thing. I was just like, I felt like I was like coughing. Oh, it's so gross. So gross. So always check your juices, people, because sometimes there's some loogies in there. And that just sounded so dirty. Oh my God, I can't believe I just said that out loud. And so on that note, we're going to be talking about Bohemian Grove today.
Yeah, I wanted to get to like a little business before. We usually save this for afterward or after the episode, but thought I'd try so we could get some feedback from you guys. We're looking at some merch options and wanted to see if anybody's interested. Like, what do you want? Do you want T-shirts? Do you want pins, buttons, stickers? Let us know. We're on any social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Send us a message at our email, which is ourmusicodcast@gmail.com. And that's all I have. Just wanted to get to that first. But yeah, we wanted to talk about Bohemian Grove today. I've been listening to this podcast about the Grateful Dead. It's called Dead and Gone. And I was looking up, stuff about the band just because I find it interesting and just thought it would be fun. And found out that two of the members are part of the Bohemian Club, which we'll explain what it is in case you guys don't know, which I thought was very, very odd. So then I, of course, had to talk about it on the podcast and wanted to look into it a little bit more. So
they're like bona fide members, not like waitlisted.
Yeah, and there's actually more musicians than I thought. It's really hard to get an updated list. I think the last one that was leaked as part of like a WikiLeaks, came out in 2014. And it does have some past members and, possibly current members, but I don't know, as of this year, who's part of it and who isn't. And then I know that they do have some performances at the camp. So, there's probably even more
The Grateful Dead does?
I don't know if the Grateful Dead does. It's hard to get a lot of information because they're actually pretty secretive about what happens there. And, we'll talk about that. Sometimes people have been able to get a hold of like an agenda or like one of their little kind of like daytime lists on what happens. So you can kind of get an idea there, but it's not consistent.
Camp schedule? Is that what it is? What are you talking
It's
about?
kind of, well, I'll get into it. Okay, so I'll just start. Bohemian Grove is a campground deep in the Northern California redwoods. The campground belongs to a gentleman's club started in 1878 called the Bohemian Club. They own a 2,700-acre plot forest where they've constructed cabins, a giant stage for plays and speakers, a 40-foot concrete owl statue, and there's even a helicopter pad. It was... you look like you want to say something.
I was just thinking that 2,700 acres is like massive.
Oh, yeah.
It's huge.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like they didn't even purchase the club until like much later, like after the club formed. Because like, wasn't it it was formed like back in the day, but they like the retreat, the camp thing wasn't.
They didn't purchase
until much later.
Yes, yeah. The club started in 1878, but they didn't purchase the land right away. And it was actually, it started as like a small artist little colony / camp out that they would have, but it turned into something very different. And they originally had, they invited some businessmen and politicians and people that, had some money to kind of support it because they wouldn't have been able to do that on their own, like pull their money together.
Sorry.
No, you're fine.
Because I was like researching it too. It seemed like it started off with like the writers and the musicians and like more of like the people living that lifestyle. And they would throw these like crazy lavish parties. And then they just kind of figured that they got some people to start bankrolling it. And then they made it into a club. And then like they kind of realized that like you mix the billionaires with the artists, or like what would now be a modern day billionaire. But back then it wasn't like that. Or it would be like the equivalent of like the super rich person in town would be the one funding everything.
Yeah.
And so then they just made their memberships like stupid expensive.
Yeah. And
so elite, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And it turned into something very different because now, like we said, that the members are mostly like rich, like very rich people, politicians, bank managers, owners, and there are some artists and, writers, poets, and musicians now mixed in, but they're not the majority anymore.
Correct.
Yeah. So the motto of the club is "Weaving spiders come not here," which was taken from Shakespeare's Midsummer Night's Dream, and it's meant to mean leave your cares and worries behind. So these people, they head to this campground and just kind of like go wild for 2 weeks and relax. And they're not supposed to, discuss work, even though, we have proof that there have been, discussions, things that are
naturally.
Yeah. And, that's probably why some people try to get in to kind of rub shoulders with some of these people. But yeah, this 2-week annual retreat is kicked off with the controversial cremation of care ceremony where men in red hooded robes, some carrying torches, others carrying a wooden coffin, they run through but they navigate through the woods like a funeral progression until they reach the base of the giant owl statue mentioned before. And they chant, they sing songs. Some of them get really, really, really heated and, yelling at this thing. And a man dressed like a priest then says, "Shake off your sorrows with the city's dust and scatter to the winds the cares of life." The funeral pyre is then lit, and the coffin containing a wooden skeleton is burned. And if you guys...
Is that it? Anything else?
No,
Sounds like there's a lot going on down there.
Yeah,
so this is also like there's performances and like plays and stuff like that too.
Oh yeah, and we'll get into all that. It's but this part is kind of what causes a lot of the controversy with, because they're saying like there's Satanists there and they're, actually sacrificing children or humans when they, they burn this
effigy.
Yes. Yeah. And there's even some footage that you can find online, because if you guys are aware of Alex Jones, he's like a conspiracy theorist.
No, but you are.
Yeah,
I can tell.
Yeah, and I sent Kendra a bunch of like fun videos when I was researching this.
But you talked about him before.
I follow that shit. Like, I want to say, like, when did YouTube first like become a thing? I was like 21 in my first apartment, and we'd just get stoned and watch conspiracy theory YouTube videos in my house.
That's what YouTube was for.
Definitely.
Back 10 years ago.
Yeah, that was like 13 years ago. Yeah. So, we would see all that stuff and like, oh my God, Alex Jones is like the worst, but,
oh, he is.
Yeah. He's,
but also really entertaining.
Oh, absolutely. But it was, I don't know, but yeah, all the Bohemian Grove stuff, like there's so many different conflicting things. There's like little mini documentaries. Like there's so much conflicting information out there about what actually happens. Like you've got interviews with people saying that they worked there, but like really all they want to do is like talk about who they met and stuff like that. And I don't know. I've listened to like 4 or 5 different podcasts. Like, oh my God. Sorry, I'm losing track. Go on.
The funny thing about it is, too, when I was researching, like I kind of have like the usual routes that I go, and you can find stuff online, like written stories and podcasts, but you can't find a lot of these documentaries on any other platform than YouTube. You can't find it on Amazon. You can't find it on Netflix, Hulu, anything. It seems like they stripped a lot of that stuff off. And I was looking into that a little bit. And I guess, pretty much all of them, except, YouTube, as I said, took a bunch of Alex Jones stuff down, like all at the same time, kind of like wiped him out from a lot of these different platforms. Because he's kind of all over the place with some of his conspiracy theories.
Of, like,
some of them aren't that
really
like crazy and far off, and some of them are really ridiculous.
He's also definitely crossed a lot of lines when it comes to like the ADL and shit. Definitely has it out for him.
Yeah.
The Anti-Defamation League, and there's definitely always been debates on whether or not he's anti-Semitic.
Yeah.
So that's a huge part, I think, of that censorship.
Probably.
And like also. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot. There's a lot. I don't even want to go into Alex Jones, honestly.
Oh,
I
yeah.
don't think he needs any more attention.
Same. We just mentioned that you can find that footage because he's the only person that has like footage from that ceremony. So he snuck in with John Ronson, who's a British journalist, and they were able to get that. And it's funny because they have complete conflicting stories about like what actually happened while they were there and, what they were worried about. They had this whole plan.
He covers that in his book called Them, Adventures with Extremists.
Yeah.
And it is absolutely hysterical. So I urge anyone listening to this, if you want a good laugh, definitely read that chapter at least. It's so funny.
Yeah, and it's funny too because they had this whole plan to go in, and John Ronson had like a guy that was going to help him get in, and then Alex Jones gets scared that they're like setting him up and he's going to die, so he like takes off through the woods, kind of goes rogue with this cameraman, and they had it like in a bag, so it was concealed, and they got the footage, but then since they weren't really together anymore, he kind of like dominated the footage after that and didn't give people copies. Like it's really funny if you watch the documentary. But Alex Jones thought that there was all this, crazy stuff going on and they were definitely sacrificing people. And John Ronson was like, no, it's just like, some drunk guys.
Martinis.
Yeah.
John Ronson, it was basically like, I just watched a play and we saw, this stuff. And it was like, oh, I get it. It means, like murdering your cares and whatever.
Yeah.
Like leave your worries behind and like indulgence. It's all about indulgence this weekend and whatever. And not judging. And Alex comes up and he's like, dude, and he's like covered in shrubbery, like rolling through the woods, like freaking out, sweating like profusely, and like completely read something absolutely different into it. Well, like, I can just see it in my mental image of it is
it's
like
really funny.
John Ronson just like eating some cheese and wine and like, you know, like, like joking around with these people that think that he's part of the club. And
yeah.
Alex Jones just like completely going off his rocker and like army crawling through the forest and like only seeing glimpses of things because he's like so paranoid. It's absolutely hysterical.
Yeah.
It really is. So the club hosts, as I said before, you know, businessmen, politicians, global dignitaries, past presidents, writers, FBI, CIA agents, you know, and like I said, even musicians. It's even rumored that at one point a couple of ex-Nazis had, you know, made it to as a guest, not as a member. There is a 15-year waiting list just to join, and it costs $25,000 to just like put your application in. And then I found conflicting information. Some things said that it was $600 a month after you finally get in, and then some said it was just $5,000 annually. So it just depends, you know, where you're finding your information. They host daytime events, speakers, and they put on performances, plays. Women are limited and they must leave the camp by 10 p.m. There's only been 4 women that have actually been members of the club.
Oh.
Yeah. So some members...
Well, it was a gentleman's club when it started, right?
Right. Right. Yeah.
Not that I'm against women being in the club. It just...
Yeah.
That's the
I know. I
origin,
don't
the
care.
history, yeah.
Some members include both George Bush's, Reagan, Nixon, Colin Powell, David Rockefeller, Jeb Bush, William Randolph Hearst, Henry Kissinger, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Paul Pelosi, who's husband of Nancy Pelosi, Donald Rumsfeld. And when I saw his name, I kind of forgot for a second who he was, and I was thinking of that cartoonist, and I think it's Donald Hertzfeld who did those. Do you guys remember those?
Oh, John Hertzfeld?
Yeah.
Cartoonist. Yeah.
So I was.
You think he was
I didn't really think it was that person,
Rumsfeld
but
in
I saw the name and I kind of forgot who he was at first, and then I was like, it's not that guy.
I know exactly who you're talking about, like the guy that's like, my spoon's too big.
Yes.
I'm a banana.
Yeah, he was in the club too, maybe.
So I, of course, went back and watched all those. But then John Layman, Alden Clausen, writers like Jack London, Mark Twain, poet Ambrose Bierce were, past members. Musicians like Bing Crosby, Jimmy Buffett, pianist Bruce Livingston, ex-Grateful Dead members Mickey Hart and Bob Weir, and Steve Miller from Steve Miller Band were some that I found on the list. The members are divided into camps with names like the Hillbillies, the Mandalays, the Derelicts, the Silverado Squatters, the Rattlers, Cavemen, and Los Angeles. There's like a bunch more, but I just picked out my favorites.
I like how they just definitely aren't rich people names.
I know.
Like they're making fun of it. Like I can't tell.
Yeah. Many of the past members were part of like the ritualistic fraternities like the Skull and Bones, and you can kind of see how that would, then this club would appeal to people that were members of those while they were in college.
Yeah.
And kind of get into that stuff.
I feel like they start recruiting for that club in college too.
They probably do.
So I have a story,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm not going to say who told it to me.
Okay.
But just privacy and whatever. But I was told this story where this person was the student body president of their college, and they were out in San Francisco.
Mm-hmm.
And and it was during the era when there was all the protests and stuff like that in the 60s. And they basically, we're like, hey, okay, we see where you're going with this, whatever. Oh, you're like this type of person. Sounds good. Here's the kind of future that you could have. And they brought him to the club headquarters, which is in San Francisco. And he said that there was and this is back in the 60s even. So there was a limousine for a 4-star general or whatever, parked outside.
Yeah.
And so it was a pretty big limousine. And then another limo pulled up and made that limousine move because it was even bigger for some super wealthy person, and said that when he got to the door, they asked for his drink order. Mm-hmm. And then by the time he got off the elevator at the top, he got his drink or whatever. And didn't really go into anything else about the club, but just kind of like, hey, you're an up-and-comer. Like, this is what you could have if you follow this way.
Trying to schmooze him.
Which I thought was really interesting that they would, even show college students about it.
I know.
I guess they got to recruit somehow, or else it would die. I don't know.
That's true. You got to get some people, putting in applications so they can get massive amounts of money from them.
Yeah.
It's also rumored that members of the Rosicrucians, Order of Hubertus, Freemasons, and the Illuminati have been members past and present. And like I mentioned before, they think that there's a lot of Satanistic activities going on. The owl god at Bohemian Grove is named Malak and is supposed to symbolize wisdom. The 40-foot concrete statue was constructed in the late 1920s and was designed by past club president Haig Patagon. The owl is voiced by Walter Cronkite. And the plays and the sacrifice take place in front of the owl.
Interesting.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
There's also a Canaanite god named Malak. It's spelled differently, but child sacrifices are offered through fire, which is, kind of what they do in the club, or through war. So what were you going to say?
Oh, no. Nothing. I don't remember.
I forgot.
The club's patron saint is John of Nepomucene, who was murdered by the Bohemian monarch for not disclosing confessed secrets of the Queen of Bohemia. Other than the massive amounts of drinking, ceremonies, peeing on trees, and plays. Oh, and they also have lakeside talks because they have this giant man-made lake there. The Grove is also rumored to set the nation's agenda, determine who is going to be the next president, and has since the early 1900s. And this is kind of interesting. It's where the Manhattan Project was originally hatched by Oppenheimer.
Okay.
Yeah.
I saw something about that too.
Yeah, he wasn't an official member, and it didn't happen during the 2-week campout during July, because they can have people go and do things in the area in the off season. And they actually have a June little thing called, I think it's might be called the Spring Jinx or something like that, before the 2-week camp out. The camp is also rumored to have a wild nightlife, especially between 1 and 4 a.m., where the prostitutes called Grovers, which is also, I guess, what they call some of the club members. So I thought that was kind of weird. But they're brought in. William Webster, who is a former CIA and FBI director, FBI from 78 to 87 and CIA from 87 to 91, arrested a nearby hotel owner for supplying prostitutes to the Grove, but he was a member there, which is kind of interesting. So after he arrested this guy, he then, returned back to the camp and delivered a speech while he was still head of the FBI, and actually leaked national security secrets while he was talking, which is, the whole story is kind of crazy. I mean, there's a lot that I just unloaded there, but
yeah, I was like, what?
That's a lot to process.
Yeah.
So he busted the dude that was providing prostitutes
to the club that
buddies.
He's part of. Yeah.
And then gave a press conference where he was talking about stuff that was discussed at the Grove that gave away national security secrets.
Well, no, he gave a speech at the Grove after, because you think after he busted their prostitutes, maybe he wouldn't go back, but he did. And he was giving one of the lakeside talks, and actually that was when he, let loose national security secrets. Just thought the whole thing was just odd, which a lot of these stories are, and there's so many little wormholes that you can go down with this.
I believe it.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
Pretty wild.
And just weird that it happened while he was still head of the FBI. Years after the Johnny Gosch kidnapping in 1982, sex worker and alleged child prostitute Paul Benassi confessed to assisting in the kidnap of the boy, and that he and other children were supplied to political party members, and even, were delivered to them at Bohemian Grove. And he described things which weren't made public for quite a while. So it's actually not that crazy to, believe. His claims were backed up by other children, including Alicia Owen. These children were rumored to be part of a child prostitution ring connected to the Franklin Credit Union. And that's a whole nother story, and actually a really good podcast about that. True Crime Garage covers the Franklin cover-up, and also Creep It Real. They both do a really good job kind of telling, that whole story. And I won't go there because it's too long. But these kids were supported by Senator John DeCamp, who, he believed their claims and tried to actually help them out. He met with the CIA director, William Colby, who kind of encouraged him to stay out of it and was kind of like, people, that are involved with this usually end up dying. And there were actually 15 people that were at one point either going to investigate, testify, or, kind of support the claims that these children were making that ended up dead in really mysterious ways. Like some of them were, and I mean, it goes like, there's a lot of people involved, like press, coroners, like we said, politicians. It's really strange.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, cops, court officials, coroners, politicians, business leaders, and the media officials were said to be involved. The now adult victims were actually charged and prosecuted for perjury because they said that they couldn't trust some of their claims, but there was a lot of evidence that was lost in the process. But yeah, brought all of this up because it's one of like kind of the darker rumors out there about Bohemian Grove.
Right.
But yeah, some of their claims included rape, murder, sacrifice, cannibalism, assisted kidnapping, schemes, and this goes all the way to the top. Yeah, and like I mentioned before, a lot of conspiracy theorists like David Icke and Alex Jones believe that there really are children being sacrificed at the Grove. I forgot to mention before that you can actually listen to both John Ronson and Alex Jones talk with Joe Rogan about this whole Bohemian. Yeah, it's really good. I think he's actually kind of friends with both of them.
Yeah, I know he's been on Joe Rogan's podcast maybe
couple
more
times.
than once. Yeah.
Yeah. Even John Ronson's been on more than once too.
Because I think Joe Rogan is also into those crazy conspiracy. Not great, but he's into conspiracies, basically. Yeah.
And there are several journalists that have snuck in and kind of given, their opinion on what happens there and, kind of told stories. And usually it's pretty mild, just like drinking, like some like guys running around naked in the woods and
definitely
peeing
heard
everywhere.
Like, some stories about one thing that I was talking about, like George W. Bush just always being like the naked guy at the party and like shit face.
Hey guys.
Oh, that's so funny. Yeah,
it's
and
funny
since
to me because I can definitely see it. Also, can we talk about like how it's funny that like George W. Bush now is just like living his best life as like a painter of dog portraits?
What? I didn't know this.
Say what?
Have you guys seen any of this stuff?
No.
He's just like happily like painting portraits now. I don't know.
Oh.
I think
Good for him,
the only
I guess.
updates I ever see about George W. Bush is that he's just really into painting.
That's hilarious.
Did not see that coming.
Yeah, I wouldn't have guessed ever. Is he good?
They're not bad.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's just kind of funny.
Yeah, we'll try to find one of these portraits and put it up because I was going to put. I have some hand drawn. Well, not hand drawn, but some maps of the layout of the Grove that I'll put up with this episode, and we'll put a George Bush original up there too.
They're linked.
Absolutely.
Correlated.
Yeah, no, seriously, just Google it. Like you'll see like a shit ton of images of him just like standing by a painting and like presenting pictures of like dogs to veterans and like I don't know, just random stuff.
I'm gonna paint a happy little dog
it's like,
today.
what do you do after you retire from being the president? Paint pictures of dogs, like.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh no, you're fine. I'm glad that you brought that up because I did not know that happened. In 1978, the club was charged with discrimination over its refusal to hire female employees. In 1981, the club...
What about the prostitutes?
I guess, yeah, I know. I didn't really think about that.
Are they not employees?
Yeah. In 1981, the club was ordered to begin hiring women, and then they kind of went back and forth with this for a while. It even went to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
In 1984, but it was finally decided in 87, like, you have to hire women. They have
So
kept
they hired
them.
one woman.
No, but they keep them in
work
like
in the
very low
kitchen.
positions. Like they prepare the food for the other help
Yeah.
and stuff like that. So they kind of keep them out of.
But
out
you
of the
said
place.
there was 4 women who were actually members too. So
yeah.
it's not like exclusively guys.
Does it ever mention who those women were?
Yeah, it does. I didn't
Barbara
write it down.
Bush, I don't know.
No, it wasn't Barbara Bush. It was. I didn't recognize the names, but yeah, I can put that up with this post as well. And we put all our posts on the Instagram page usually, and some of them on our Facebook page. Inside the camp, logging activities have been conducted since 1984. The club planned to increase their business every year after. And after violating terms of their logging permits for years, they finally lost their permit in 2011, and they're no longer allowed to log on the property, which I'm glad about that. They really shouldn't be able to, because, it should be like a beautiful, protected part of the forest. And you think that they wouldn't want to do that.
Was in the first place. But.
Yeah, they said a lot of it was to prevent forest fires, but they proved that it was bullshit and they were just making money off of it.
Oh.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. In 2018, a bunch of the workers went on strike because at best they were being paid $15 an hour, but a lot of them were making much less than that. Things were eventually settled between club management and the union. Yeah, I thought that was sad because, you think about like how much the club's making annually off of like all of its members and all of these rich people. And then it's sad to
Trickle down economics doesn't work.
Yeah. I mean, especially if they also like live around the area too. It's a very, living in California, West Coast is expensive.
Oh yeah.
So, I mean, it would be hard to live on that out here in Indiana. So
it's interesting too, because like, isn't the club worth like $15 to $30 million or something?
Probably.
I mean, they have like the club itself like does pay taxes and stuff like that. But like, it's always the same reported income.
Yeah, and
even though like I feel like just even being a member might be a money making thing. So
it sounds like any other business. Sounds like Walmart pay the employees.
That, and when you hear about how much money,
rich.
Yeah, they put a bunch of money into their like plays and performances, like lots of money, and they have like the world's second largest pipe organ on the stage. Yeah, so you think that they could afford to pay these guys a little bit better? And it was even sad reading some of these stories, where the employees were being interviewed and found out like how low like they were tipping some of these people. It was actually really sad.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It's like you have some of the world's richest people all in this room.
Yeah, and they were saying
like they don't even take care of the people to like keep their silence. Like, really? No wonder you always like find like different podcasts like having interviews with people that worked at the Grove that like, I don't know, like I feel like some people maybe didn't have to sign an NDA or something.
Yeah.
Because like there's definitely podcasts out there that have people that have worked there.
Yeah, it's funny.
I heard one, but it was like the most annoying podcast I think I've ever listened to. I don't even remember the name of it, but it was just
not like ours.
Like they kept on talking about like, we got the guy, we got a guy for this, blah blah blah, and it was like supposed to be like this big deal, and it's like they just hyped it up so much more than anything the guy actually had to say worth anything.
Oh yeah,
it was pretty funny. Like kind of sad.
He had nothing worthwhile to say. Just
none of these really have anything like. I mean, the child prostitution stuff is awful and terrible. If and there's probably some truth there. It could, it's not that crazy to believe. But all the other stuff that you hear about the people really isn't that bad. Like, oh, they got drunk and got mad about a milkshake, or they
seem like
peed
there's
on
much
stuff.
Evidence of any of the crazy like cannibalism and sacrifices.
Yeah,
like, I don't. I'm not saying nothing happened weird, but we don't know about it. So
I'm going to give like a quick rundown on some of the musicians that have been members. First being Crosby, who's an American singer, comedian, and Academy Award-winning actor. He was born in 1903. He sang
White Christmas.
He sang 4 Academy Award-winning songs, including White Christmas, Swinging on a Star, Sweet Leilani. And then in the Cool, Cool Evening. White Christmas was his most popular film. But he was in other popular films like He's Going My Way, and I think he won an Oscar for that, or at least was nominated. The Bells.
Wasn't he like a bad like wife beater?
I don't know.
I think all those guys were
maybe.
that Rat Pack.
I feel like, because like one of my favorite family movies that we always watch every year is White Christmas.
Yeah.
And my dad's always griping. He's like, that guy's a woman beater.
He might be.
He might have been. I don't know.
That's a bold claim.
I'm not trying to stir something up. I don't know anything
but
about.
I'm definitely like going to look it up. Probably right now, actually, just so I don't have to recant that.
Look it up while because I just have a few more lines if you want to look it up real quick. But yeah, he was in The Bells of St. Mary's, High Society, Holiday Inn, and Country Girl. He had 23 gold and platinum records. He received a Grammy Lifetime Achievement Award in 1962. He was inducted into the Hall of Fame for radio, popular music, Western music, and the Hit Parade Hall of Fame. He has influenced musicians like John Lennon, Elvis, Frank Sinatra, Dean Martin, and he also has a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. He died in 1977.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I'm definitely seeing...
Oh, was that the only musician?
No. Oh. I was waiting on Kendra to find that.
Oh, she was checking on the...
Yeah.
The wife beating.
One thing is that, like, in one book, he was described as a tyrant who beat his sons.
Aww.
And then in another book by his daughter, she said that was all a lie, so who knows?
Oh, yeah.
But it definitely was a prevalent rumor, so...
Yeah, next up is Jimmy Buffett, American singer.
Now the idea of all of these fucking presidents, because like almost every single president of the United States of America since its creation of the Bohemian Club has been a member.
Yeah.
So just imagining that all of them are parrot heads.
I know. I was thinking about that
like
too.
Just drinking the pina coladas, living their life. Potentially getting prostitutes. Oh my God.
Yeah.
The mental image is funny and terrifying at the same time.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't know that he was also an actor, and author and businessman. I did know those. He was born in 1946, and he has famous songs like Margaritaville, It's 5 O'Clock Somewhere with Alan Jackson, and he sang with Frank Sinatra on a version of Mac the Knife. He played on the White House lawn when Bill Clinton was president. He has 2 popular restaurant chains, the Margaritaville Cafe and Cheeseburger in Paradise. Have you guys been to either of those?
I have been to Cheeseburger in Paradise.
I haven't.
I have not. But I had a coworker at my old salon that like they would go and stay at the Jimmy Buffett like hotels or Margaritaville like franchise or something.
Yeah.
They're like obsessed with it.
Yeah, like the fans are like real into...
The cheeseburger place is kind of like an Applebee's with like Jimmy Buffett Island theme.
Okay.
The food's kind of like that. It's pretty good.
As a diehard fan of cheeseburgers in general, like it is my favorite food.
You're in.
Yeah.
I do have a special place in my heart for that song, but only after the cheeseburger love had been really kindled in my heart, you know.
Consummated.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Wrong word.
Potentially.
Allegedly. He was another artist whose material was destroyed in the 2008 Universal fire. He was in movies like Jurassic World, Repo Man, Hoot, The Beach Bum, and shows like Hawaii Five-0, NCIS New Orleans. He wrote a few musicals and still is possibly working on more. He had 31 albums released between 1970 and I wrote 1920, but I obviously think I meant 1980. No. Not sure.
Fact check that one.
Yeah, there's a bridge named after him in his hometown of Pascagoula, Mississippi, and I'm probably saying that wrong, so I apologize if I am.
I don't know.
Yeah, next up, Steve Miller. Steve Miller is an American singer, guitarist, songwriter, leader of the Steve Miller Band. He was born in 1943, and the Steve Miller Band released 18 studio albums and 6 live albums, which included popular songs like The Joker, Fly Like an Eagle, and Take the Money and Run. He briefly taught at USC Thornton School of Music, taught popular music and music industry programs. He was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2016.
Damn straight.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that you can find about that too, because he was super pissed that Elton John wasn't the one to present.
Why?
That he was mad because the guys from the Black Keys were the ones that did it, and he didn't think that they were, big enough fans, and he said that he knew that Elton John was a fan. So I guess it didn't really go well, and the Black Keys guys were they've actually spoken about how it wasn't a great experience for them, and they left right after they did their part and didn't stay for the rest. Huh? Yeah, otherwise I'd never really heard anything bad about him, but I also haven't looked into him that much. Yeah, and then I
don't know a ton about Steve Miller, to be honest.
Yeah. Then we get into Mickey Hart and Bob Weir from the Grateful Dead. Mickey Hart is an American percussionist, best known from his time with the Grateful Dead from 1967 to 1971. And then also from 1974 until their final show in 95. He was born in 1943. He originally left the band after his father embezzled $70,000 from the band while he was briefly managing them. And his drug use had also gotten out of control at that time. He recorded 3 solo albums and a soundtrack for The Silent Flute. Let me see. Oh, and he recorded 16 albums with other musicians as well. So he, had quite a bit going on. He authored several books and has worked to preserve traditional music around the world for the American Folklife Center at the Library of Congress and the Smithsonian Institution. He won a Grammy in 91 after producing album Planet Drum. He was inducted to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame as a member of the Grateful Dead in 94. And then he continued to tour with the Rhythm Devils and surviving Dead members joined by Trey Anastasio, Bruce Hornsby, and Jeff Chimenti, who was also one of the Rhythm Devils, in 2015 to celebrate the 50th anniversary of the Dead. And so, I shouldn't call them the Dead. I mean the Grateful Dead, but because there was also a band with the surviving members called the Dead for a while, so I'll try not to do that again.
Yeah, I think that's what they're called now. They don't call themselves the Grateful Dead.
They're like the Dead or the Dead and Company.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll try not to do that again, but it's actually really hard. Okay, so Bob Weir, who was born in 1947, is musician and songwriter, known for his work playing rhythm guitar and contributing to vocals for the Grateful Dead as well, as Jerry Garcia. He was one of the founding members and was in it until they disbanded in 95. He also performed with the Dead and, the other bands mentioned that with the surviving members. He was part of the 22 Grateful Dead albums that came out, and Mickey Hart actually wasn't part of all the, because he was away from the band for a while. So he released 4 solo albums, 3 albums with band Kingfish, 2 with Bobby and the Midnights, and 2 with a band called Rat Dog, which makes me think of Mouse Rat from
Rat Dog. I think I've seen Bob
Parks and Rec.
Rat Dog, like the cartoon on Nickelodeon.
Oh yeah.
I think I've seen Bob Weir play live at some point.
Okay, but yeah, that was a cover.
It might have been that band.
Yeah, they're a cover band, and they play songs by Chuck Berry, Bob Dylan, the Beatles, and Grateful Dead songs.
Can you imagine though? Just 1 second, you were in the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what I'm going to do now? I can't wait to start this fucking cover band.
Right.
I bet it was just screwing around and having fun, and they're like, people might like to listen to this. Plus, we sound pretty good on these songs.
I just hate it. I hate that.
Oh, really?
I don't know.
I just thought it seemed kind of fun.
There's one thing of just getting together with your buddies and jamming or whatever, but then to go do that. Whatever. He's been successful enough. He can do whatever he wants, but that's just funny to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to be in a terrible cover band now.
They might be really good.
They're probably a great cover band, to be honest, but still, it's oh man.
There is a documentary about Bob called The Other One, The Long Strange Trip of Bob Weir. that premiered at the Tribeca Film Festival in 2014 and was then available on Netflix in 2015. He got a 2016 Lifetime Achievement Award at the Americana Honors Award in Nashville. And then, obviously when they were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, he was part of that as well.
Who gave out their award? The Black Keys?
I don't know. I should have looked that up. Maybe.
Like so salty.
Yeah, maybe it was Eddie Vedder.
Eddie Vedder. Son of a bitch.
Yeah, I have no idea, but it could have been him. But yeah, so what do you guys think after like everything that we've heard? What do you think these musicians, what did they take part in at the Grove? I know we have nothing to prove any of it, so it's just, discussion between us, but
I think that there's definitely got to be like musicians as legitimate members. Absolutely.
Oh yeah, well they are, or they were,
yeah, and like I don't know. Do you really want to work when you're at the place? Like probably not. So I think that they just go and enjoy the indulgence, right? Maybe in their camp it's just like a fucking like fire pit where they're all just jamming out and playing cover songs. Like who knows?
Yeah. It could be.
Maybe that's where the cover band formed.
Maybe. Yeah. Yeah, because I mean, you think by now if any of them were involved with like any of the like kiddie porn stuff or child prostitution,
cannibalism
that you would have heard about it, or at least something would have been mentioned. But I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, like this is a weird year for that. Like I guess we'll see when Epstein's shit comes out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean that whole. I don't know much about it, but that whole like pedo island or whatever you want to call it. Like if you would have told me like 5 or 10 years ago that was a thing, I would have been like, nah. But now I'm like, you know what? It was. It probably was.
Yeah, I mean,
this other thing may have been something too. I don't know.
I know.
Yeah, who knows? Like I take everything with a grain of salt, but I also don't disbelieve anything completely. So
same here. Yeah,
it's like I like honestly, if this year's taught me anything in life, is that anything's fucking possible.
Yeah,
so,
very true.
Who knows?
Yeah. Regardless, I mean, what's your overall opinion of like the club in general? Like, do you have problems with it? Do you
kind of
like? What do you think it really is?
Rich people. There was like you mentioned, Colin Powell was the only person that you mentioned.
I know
who was in it. Who
there's probably
was not, like,
if you like maybe a handful of other
sure
people of color,
but
but overwhelmingly it's a white male group. And there are a lot of problems
they weren't
there.
paying the employees well. If they were paying the employees well, I'd be like, well, it's okay. I mean,
yeah.
I don't know.
There's also a lot. I didn't get into this because I didn't even know if it should be mentioned, but since they have their plays going on and it's, all men there, they make a big deal about the guys dressing up as women for the female roles. And then like they'll have like photos and stuff taken afterwards. And it seemed like could be completely harmless, but also seemed like some of the photos were almost meant to kind of like mock that. And like I said, I didn't even know if I wanted to mention it since we don't really know. And I didn't.
Well, I mean, like, I feel like I think the whole point of the club for like what I'm thinking is like just take any fucking frat party, but make it more exclusive. And that's what Bohemian Grove is. So you're going to get people that are fucking assholes. You're going to get the people that are just there to try to be part of the cool club. Right. But then I don't know. I think there's going to be different dynamics and different stuff going on.
I completely agree. And like some people that
everybody's involved with everything. I think, it's just, you've got some people that are absolutely horrendous human beings there. And then you've got other people that are just kind of like along for the ride. Am I going to judge them for being there? Maybe a little bit. Do I think about this other than when actually having a conversation about it? No.
Yeah.
I think that they're like conspiring to run the. I think it's just a bunch of people that are at the same income level.
Yeah.
Just getting drunk and being dicks together.
Yeah, and even regardless of what I feel about them personally, I think the majority of these people have probably like pretty high stress jobs, and they don't, since they're in the public eye, they don't have a lot of places where they can kind of let loose. and, you know, act like an ass for a while.
That's a good point, yeah.
So they could be photographed, like if they're acting like a jerk at a bar.
Paparazzi everywhere.
Yeah. So,
right.
yeah. So it, you know, might just be for some of them that aren't involved in anything, you know, nefarious. It could just be like them taking some time, you know, unplugging a little bit and like getting drunk and acting crazy in the woods.
Oh, that was like the most important thing I forgot to mention about like the person that I know that like went to the clubhouse, right? Was, and it's obviously not the camp. It's just like the club headquarters, whatever. They said that it was mostly just a bunch of businessmen and important people and whatever sitting around either having a cocktail, having a coffee, and just like quietly reading a newspaper or just like sitting alone or like having a conversation with someone else that was there, but mostly just like not having anyone else bothering them. I think that was like the whole point of that clubhouse. So the idea of that, like the camp would be, you know, a party where no one's going to bother them or like nothing is going to get put out there about it.
Yeah.
Same concept.
My brother-in-law and like his guy friends from college, they go on this annual trip every year where they get a cabin in Tennessee and they just like go hang out and drink. And, you know, it kind of reminds me of like the same thing a little bit. Like, yeah, they don't let any of the wives go. They don't, you know, have any female friends that are going, but they just kind of go like act wild and let loose and relax and kind of get away from their families for a little bit. But
to also put it out there, like these are also very powerful people.
Yeah.
So like the idea that different, you know, things that could greatly affect our entire country are being discussed there. Yeah. That's probably absolutely
100%
happening.
Yeah.
Maybe some deals are made over, you know, campfire cocktails or whatever. Like, I don't know. The whole thing is just like a weird concept to me, I suppose, just because I can't imagine ever being that important or powerful.
Oh,
so
it's yeah, it's
kind
crazy
of a trip to go down that rabbit hole and think about like what a single conversation in that setting could like mean, you know?
Yeah, so true.
And I think that's why everybody's kind of obsessed with it.
That, and because of like all the security, all of the secrecy surrounding this, you know, because like I said, there's not a ton out there that you can really get. There's like a couple things that some of the ex-employees have said, but for the most part, you don't really get a lot of information. And because I think, you know, that builds a lot of interest in the whole story. Otherwise, like, who would really care if these guys were just like going out? If they were like kind of telling you what was happening, what they were talking about, you'd be like, oh, boring. I don't really want to listen to that. But yeah, just because they have, you know, I mean, the security is crazy. They had people that during off season tried to get in there for this documentary that, you know, they were stopped every step of the way and like arrested.
Yeah.
They also had Alex Jones try to help him get back in, which was really funny. But it was for like Brad Metzger's something codes and secrets, but it was a good episode. But yeah, I think if, you know, it was a little bit, if they like let people go in and tour during the off season or anything like that, I think, you know, people wouldn't care.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah.
Just imagination of the events that transpires, you know, goes wild.
Yeah. So now there's like all this, you know, crazy allegations and lore surrounding the sacrifice and cannibalism and different groups that are planning the world domination.
Right.
Yeah.
That was the whole theme of John Ronson's book, is that like every single conspiracy theory leads to the fact that everybody's convinced that there's like a room full of people controlling the world.
Yeah. Seriously, it does. Because even like when you know, look into subjects like, you know, was Paul McCartney replaced by another person? That kind of still goes back to like, eventually it goes back to like, you know, the same group of people that are controlling everything. It's weird.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's such a rabbit hole.
Yeah. So who is our lizard person or persons for this episode?
I'm going to say both of them. both members of
the Grateful Dead. Okay. See, I was gonna
George Bush.
I was gonna go more like
I can't
the
stop
Bush
picturing him
family
naked at a party,
Well,
putting his arm around
would
somebody.
He really just be like painting these pictures of dogs, though. So maybe George Bush.
Yeah.
George W.
Wait, George W. or Senior? Which one? Because they're both members.
Oh,
I know.
Senior.
Yeah, Jeb for sure too. But yeah, that's all I've got.
All right, sounds good. Well, thanks for having me on the phone call.
No.
Anytime.
And to all our listeners out there, stay safe.
Yeah, definitely.
Happy holidays.
Oh yeah, and send us any requests, stories that you know of that you want us to cover. If you have stories that you want us to tell, send those as well to our email, ourmusicoddcast@gmail.com. And I repeat, also what Kendra said, stay safe.